Dionigi, a senior lecturer of politics and international relations at the University of Bristol. Good morning, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Morning.
Perhaps you could just start by giving us your reactions to the latest developments in Lebanon, notably Israel's expansion of that buffer zone in the south.
Yeah, I think what we're witnessing is what we were expecting was going to happen. That is, Israel basically expanding its occupation of Lebanese ground, its explanation being that that part of territory will serve them the possibility to establish what they call a safe zone, so a buffering area that should protect, in theory, the north of Israel from further attack from Hezbollah. In reality, we know that historically that process doesn't go exactly that way. Israel has been trying to establish that buffer zone since 1982, at least, up until 2000, when it unilaterally withdrew from that part of territory. And then now it's trying again to try to obtain the same outcome. In reality, what happens is that through Israeli attacks over Lebanon, the role of Hezbollah and its legitimacy needs to be reinforced, because Israel, it becomes the aggressive force that then requires resistance and therefore justifies the presence of Hezbollah, at least according to Hezbollah's rhetoric.
So you're saying that in the end, this war is going to reinforce Hezbollah and make them stronger than they were going into it?
Well, at least rhetorically, at least for what is their narrative and the sense of legitimacy that they can mobilize among their own people, especially among the Shia community that they claim to represent, that could be an argument that can try to make. Even though at the beginning their popularity seemed to be in a phase of serious decline due to the fact that they basically dragged Lebanon into another war by taking revenge for the killing of Khamenei, and therefore causing the reaction of Israel that we're witnessing nowadays. Now, at this point, if the war continues and the Lebanese government faces this dilemma of on one hand trying to disarm Hezbollah, but on the other hand also has to deal with the fact that Israel is fundamentally delegitimizing its existence and its role in this process. Therefore, at that point, Hezbollah will benefit in terms of public legitimacy in front of its own community, exactly because if the occupation continues from Israel, they will be able to claim a role in that process as defenders of the interest of the Lebanese Shia community, at least in the south, and that will be counterproductive.
Let's talk about the Lebanese government's dilemma. They have been taking steps to distance themselves from Tehran and to rein in Hezbollah. Most recently, they expelled Iran's ambassador. They're calling for him to leave the country by Sunday. But has the Lebanese government really been following through on any of its threats?
Well, this has been a process that has been going on at least since the beginning of the ceasefire of November 2024, when the Lebanese government has been tasked with disarming Hezbollah. That process was proceeding to some extent, and within the capacity that Lebanese armed forces actually had to implement that process. It's a complex process because, first of all, the capacity of the Lebanese armed forces to proceed in the disarmament of Hezbollah was limited by its very military capacity to operate against a force that is potentially stronger than the Lebanese armed forces themselves. And secondly, there is also the risk that this process, by being overly abrupt and overly polarizing for society, may produce the condition for civil unrest within the country. They've tried to implement that process further, and with the resumption of hostilities after the 1st of March in the past few weeks, the Lebanese government has tried to capitalize on what appeared at least at the beginning as a decline in Hezbollah's popularity, and pushed forward towards establishing a channel for negotiations with Israel for a possible normalization of relations, or at least achieving a ceasefire, an attempt that Israel has anyway refused so far. And then at the same time, they also have asked Iran to remove its assets from Lebanon. Apparently, there were IRGC troops dislocated in Lebanon, basically trying to support Hezbollah's operation. And the latest development, as you were saying, is the declaration of Iran's ambassador persona non grata in Lebanon. We will see whether that is going to be actually implemented. We know that there is not a full agreement within the government, but also the chair of the parliament, Nabi Birri, has announced that he's not in agreement with this decision. So we will see where this is going exactly. But the risk is that too much pressure and too much polarization within the domestic front may actually cause further disruption.
As you mentioned, the Lebanese government has been trying to engage Israel in direct talks. Just very briefly, you know, what might those negotiations look like? What might a deal look like? And do you think that could actually happen?
I think the first step is to end the hostilities as soon as possible. Lebanon and the Lebanese government have been clear that they will be available for direct talks the moment in which Israel agrees to end the hostilities and begin to withdraw from Lebanese territory. That would be the first step. Then those talks will be a very complicated matter. Lebanese-Israeli relations have been characterized by constant war since 1948, basically, and the process will be complex. There'll be a lot on the table to negotiate. There'll be the enormous amount of devastation that Israel has caused to Lebanon. There'll be the presence of a significant Palestinian population within Lebanon that possibly will become part of negotiations discussing their right to return to Palestine, for example. There will be obviously the disarmament of Hezbollah will be a crucial aspect there too. So there'll be a lot of different items on the agenda for discussion. But again, it's way too early to make any prediction in that respect. And first and foremost, also remember, this is not the first time that Lebanon engages in direct negotiations with Israel for a peace agreement. The same happened also during the first occupation of Lebanon in 1982, 1983, and the siege of Beirut in those years. And that caused a very sharp division within the Lebanese society and Lebanese political groups, part of them being adamantly against any normalization with Israel, and others instead trying to normalize relations with Israel. And that division eventually has had the effect of furthering even further the civil war that was taking place at that point in the history of Lebanon.
All right, Filippo Dionigi, thank you again so much for bringing us your analysis this morning. That was Filippo Dionigi, a senior lecturer of politics and international relations at the University of Bristol. Was the conflict in the